Before we drop the needle on this one, we want to check in with you first. This episode goes somewhere real. We're discussing the stories of two men who used music, community, and charisma to cause serious harm. We say the truth plainly in this episode because the people who were hurt deserve that. So if you're in a tender place right now, no judgment, save this one for when you're ready. If you or someone you know needs support, RAINN is available at 1 800 656 4673 or at rainn.org. Okay, let's get into it.
There's always a through line with cults and cult leaders, Jerry, that is a direct connection to music. Greetings and welcome to another episode of Q Points Podcast. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
And my name is J. Ray, sometimes known by my government as Johnny Ray Cornegay III and Sir Daniel. So the past couple of weeks, we have been bombarded, if you are anywhere near YouTube, about the release of the Cult of Nature Boy documentary, which is out now. And what's so interesting about this, and we're going to talk about it today, is there's a whole music overlap to this conversation as well that we wanted to explore, not just present day, but past history as well.
Listen, I'm just going to preface this conversation by saying first of all, I love documentaries, but more than that, I love a cult documentary.
Yes.
I love the creepy music that they use throughout the documentary,
the reenactments,
the tension building, sound effects, all of that stuff is just chef's kiss for me. I started out as a kid watching I don't know why I was watching this as a kid, but Helter Skelter, which was
I
a
remember Helter Skelter.
movie based on Charles Manson, and I just remember being completely enthralled by this whole story, and of course, following those stories. Then, as a person of whose family descends from Guyana, and have always heard about the Jonestown massacre. Related to Jim Jones. And every time, here's how I know. Every time my mother would tell people where she's from, and she would say, "Oh yes, I'm from Guyana." And you can always tell a person's age or how, somebody that followed the story, they always get that look like, Jim Jones? Yes. The place where Jim Jones took all those people to their death.
Yeah.
But but it's funny, there's always a through line with cults and cult leaders, Jerry, that is a direct connection to music.
Yeah.
And specifically, we're going to talk about, because we are a Black music podcast, we're going to talk about hip hop and some R&B. What I find with a lot of people who get aligned with cults and cult leaders is that they're always looking. There's somewhere in their life, they're looking for something to ground them and something to have a connection with. And these cult leaders provide that. And because these cult leaders have this charisma and they know the exact right things to say, they're oftentimes, people that have the power to gather these people and have them follow them. And we have a lot of that within popular modern music.
Yeah.
Very charismatic figures who speak to, especially when it comes to teenagers, who speak to them, who speak to their plight, as it were, and their need for a connection to something bigger than them. And we see that all the time, a lot in hip hop music.
I was not familiar with the deep work of Nature Boy and Carbonation, but I was tangentially familiar with the music of Nature Boy and Carbonation because I was really into SoundCloud. SoundCloud was the place where you could go and you could hear like a lot of new music, and people would playlist over there. People would just create, and so as you were listening to different playlists, you would hear a lot of unique things. One of the folks that would show up was Nature Boy. Nature Boy's name was not that at the time. It was I would see it under Three God Productions, right? Which is very
Mhm.
much a black pro black sort of name that you would kind of see. You know what I mean? Like out there. So it wasn't surprising to me.
Mhm.
But what I found interesting is it wasn't for me, but it wasn't bad. You know what I'm saying? Like I could see why the music of this person would end up on a playlist. I didn't learn until later after, everything we learned everything about Carbonation, how a lot of the members of Carbonation considered themselves musicians. But I think it's important that we take a step back as we jump into this just to kind of ground folks in what this documentary kind of is. So Elijah Bishop uh started Carbonation somewhere in 2016, and it kind of went through it's still going now, honestly. Apparently there are folks who are still doing the work of Elijah Bishop today. But he is of course locked up, and he will be locked up for life. I believe it's a life sentence. But I think what's interesting, so I've only watched one of these episodes, and what I find most interesting about it is yes, there are reenactments, but because Elijah Bishop or Nature Boy documented so many things because they were online on their Nature Boy TV, we're watching actual footage
Mhm.
from them. So we don't even need to reconstruct a lot of these moments. We just need to contextualize the moments. And what I found so far watching this is the folks who are former members who are part of the documentary are doing a really good job of talking about how they got to where they got to, but then they're able to pull exact moments from footage that these people are speaking to, and that I've not really seen in a documentary before.
So you have more context for carbonation than I do because I didn't know anything about this until things started to fall apart and the law got involved and people started getting locked up. When it hit the mainstream media, that's when heard about it. I do, however, remember when I was working at a drop-in center for youth experiencing homelessness, one of the young men that I encountered there was telling me we had a studio at the drop-in center, so that was very attractive to the young people because a lot young people love to express themselves through music.
Mhm.
And there was one in particular, and now that I think back up on it out and looking at him and the way he presented it, it was giving carbonation because
Mm.
he was locked in.
Mhm.
I had no idea who this person was that he kept referring to, Nature Boy this, Nature Boy that, but he was completely locked in, which again speaks to the power
Yeah.
of an Elijah Bishop,
Mhm.
of a Jim Jones, of the person that we're going to speak of in
Mhm.
just a few moments that can have an effect on these young people because this is a young person that is experiencing homelessness. So his life,
Mhm.
he's going through a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
A lot of these young people um were really disenchanted with America, with the
Mm.
United States,
Yep.
because at the time we were witnessing the after effects of Ferguson.
Mhm.
We were also witnessing George Floyd, Sandra Bland, all of those murders were happening in front of our faces in real time, and America was just cooking. We were in a
Yeah.
cauldron pot, and then the occupant of the White House was elected and put into the White House. And so the world was in chaos, in complete chaos. And like I said earlier, this is prime soil for a person who has the country's being led by a cult of personality. So
Mhm.
why not have your own spinoff? And people are so disenfranchised with what this country is going through. You offer something that is so you offer paradise basically.
That's really what it was.
He was
And you know
offering.
what? He was offering this black utopia, and you know, this is something
Mhm.
that we haven't mentioned. Both of us were, you know, you're in Atlanta now. I was living there at the time.
Yeah.
Elijah Bishop was based in Atlanta.
Here.
So there are actually folks that I know who met him in Atlanta because he was moving throughout Atlanta in space before kind of Carbonation became like a thing that was codified. So um, I think it's important for us to remember not only, of course, you know, folks using music as a way to move people to whatever belief it is, but also that these are also real people that before uh uh the cult came to be were kind of collecting folks along the way, because this type of charisma doesn't
Mhm.
just show up, right? It's something that typically folks who become cult leaders in this way uh have. And so we wanted to take this story and kind of go back in time because there is a musician who was active in the 70s and the 80s who ultimately went on to not only lead a very active cult, but is also serving a life prison sentence for some heinous crimes. And so the work of Nature Boy doesn't exist in a vacuum. There are other folks that have kind of done similar things in the past. And one of the folks that we wanted to bring up was Dr. York. And Dr. York went by a number of names, but Malachi Z York and several names, but Dr. York, before after being Dr. York and being a musician, founded the Nuwaubian Nation, which ended up in Georgia, actually. So started in
Mhm.
Brooklyn and made its way to Georgia. And that is a very interesting and challenging story that we're going to share.
So it's funny that you mention the music connection with Dr. York. I had no idea. I'd heard about Dr. York, but I had no idea that he actually produced one of my favorite songs that was actually, I guess you would consider it a novelty song because it was
Mhm.
an answer record
Mhm.
to New
Yep.
Edition's Mr. Telephone Man by a quartet of young ladies who at the time were called Petite. And they released a song, J. Ray, called He's So Fine. And they were speaking directly about the members of New Edition, and each of them would like talk about their favorite member of New Edition in their own rap, and then they would sing about it. And it was a cutesy kind of record. I think it came out in 86, 87, around there. You never heard from them again until the early 90s when they resurfaced as ex-girlfriend,
And
who you all know of from Why Can't You Come Home,
mhm.
and other songs that were produced by Brooklyn's own Full Force.
Yep.
But right now, J. Ray, give them a rundown, a little history behind Dr. York, Dr. Malachi York.
Yeah, so focusing on the well, first of all, the history of Dr. York is kind of fascinating. I will say this. Um Dr. York began preaching in Brooklyn during the Black Power movement, actually. And he started to combine elements of the Moorish Science Temple, the Nation of Islam, the Nation of Gods and Earths, into kind of its own thing. And that's kind of how Dr. York, and so this is in the late 60s and the early 70s. So that's how far back this goes. But Dr. York also interestingly had this very vibrant music career. So he was known as a session musician, but ended up founding a studio called Passion Studios. Had a couple of record labels, so York's Records and then Passion Records. I think the Petite album came out on York's Records actually, or it may have been re-released on Passion Records. But he himself in the mid 1980s as well started to release music that also sounded like doo-wop in a lot of ways. So it was typically very male centered, but it would be like these lush vocals and harmonies, and that's kind of what he was doing. Lots of slow jams and ballads. But what's interesting is that he was doing all of this, and of course, because he had the studio, he was interacting with a lot of other musicians, rappers at the time. And so Dr. York also did influence a lot of folks who were in hip hop at the time, one of which being Afrika Bambaataa. So the teachings of Dr. York that he was doing also did influence some of the ways that the Universal Zulu Nation was also formed. So not only was this man a musician, of course, he was also preaching, and those teachings influenced a lot of rappers of the day. So you will see pieces of the work of Dr. York. They've shown up over the years in not just musical ways, but just in the ways of some of the folks in hip hop interacting and moving. So it's an interesting history. It gets really dark in a moment, but it's a lot there.
Yeah, I think that's when I became aware of who he was. And it made the timeline make sense that if he was a preacher in the 60s and the 70s, that a lot of the people that you and I grew up listening
Mhm,
to probably would have had some direct connection or
mhm,
influence from this man, including like when Jay-Z and Jazzo first hit the scene as
mhm.
the originators, they, some of his imagery was in
Yep.
their video. And so I know he also influenced Mob Deep. There's
Mhm.
quite a few people that show up. Their names are kind of attached to him at some point. I'm not surprised because we are talking about Black liberation,
Yep.
um, Black power, um, there's some mysticism thrown in there, of
Mhm,
course, and I can see why people flocked or would flock to that
mhm,
kind of messaging and would want, again, we're talking about crack era,
mhm.
HIV epidemic, the crumbling
Reaganomics.
Reaganomics, the crumbling economics. New York looks like an atomic bomb went off in certain
Mhm.
places where mostly Black and brown people live. So it made sense that as we're seeing the rise of hip hop, which is the voice of the young people, we're seeing that ascension happening along with this ascension of people looking for answers
Yeah.
and looking for someone to guide them, which is where we end up at
Yeah.
some point in Eatonton, Georgia.
In the 1990s, Dr. York moved the community. They had a compound essentially in Georgia that included pyramids, that included statues of sphinxes and gods. They were all built by the followers on this property in Georgia. So this was not a small operation. This was a major compound in Georgia. Had you heard about this story at all?
So I heard about it after, or
After
it
his
became
arrest?
more after his arrest. It became more prominent then because it was all over the news. But I think what really caught my attention when looking back is that I was associated with people with a producer that was working with people that were actually a part of this community. And if memory serves me correctly, all of these things were happening around the same time that OutKast was blowing up. And
Mhm.
remember when the album
Yep.
dropped, a
Mhm.
lot of that same imagery with the
Yeah.
pyramids and
Mhm.
everything and the aliens is coincides with what the followers of the Nuwaubian Nation were studying and were a part of. So that kind of started incubating here in Georgia. And they had, when you go out to someplace like Eatonton, Georgia,
Mhm.
and you get enough land where you can be out there kind of isolated from eyes, the
Mhm.
law and whatnot, you know, certain things can go down when you are left to rule on your own.
I know that we mentioned early on that this, much like the Elijah Bishop story gets dark, the Dr. York story gets quite dark. So Dr. York was arrested in May of 2002 along with his wife. And I am going to read these charges very matter of factly. This is what it is. He was charged with, or they were charged with more than 100 counts of dozens of children, some as young as 4 years old. State prosecutors apparently reduced that from over 1,000 potential cases because they felt like the jury just wouldn't believe the magnitude of it. So he ended up being convicted by a jury in 2004 on multiple counts of child as well as a RICO. So he was sentenced to 135 years in federal prison, with more than 70 of those years stemming directly from racketeering and financial crimes under the RICO statute. Um, so he is still in prison. It's an awful story that once again reminds us of what harm can happen with someone who is a manipulator, and people who are looking and searching for something get attached, because of the way that what this person is teaching and the way that they teach. And it's just a reminder of how important it is to be mindful of those who we follow and how we move throughout the world.
I'm wondering, J Ray, now a lot of people they're highly upset
Mhm.
and they're pointing at people within our community that they're highly upset with because of the situation we're in now. I'm starting to wonder, because of people's disenchantment with this country still,
Mhm.
I'm wondering if if we will see the rise of someone else now
Yeah.
to come along and to try and offer people some form of hope.
Mhm.
And if nothing, I think what you said is a warning also to the rest of us, like, listen, things are tough right now, and probably going to be other people who are going to be vying for your attention,
Mhm.
and in hopes that you will follow their lead, in
Mhm.
hopes that will probably sell you a dream of paradise like a nature
Mhm.
boy, and who may come with some really good music
Yep.
at the same time, or offer you the opportunity to platform your music. And if you are a musician, singer, whatever, I think these are things that we need to be aware of and to just be cognizant of. Okay, I know things are tough right now. Let's just be mindful of who comes along offering solutions immediately,
Yes.
and just really take the time to listen to things, listen to the language that they're speaking with, and just put some thought into it. Because
Yeah.
the cult of personality is what led us to where we are now. And so I think these are great lessons, people
Mhm.
like the Nature Boys, the Dr. Malachi Yorks, that we could look at to kind of see what we can look out for
Mhm.
when it comes to, people that are vying, that are saying that they can lead us to the right path or lead us to paradise.
Absolutely. There's that classic quote. Who is it from Maya Angelou? Who says, "When people show you who they are, believe them." You have pay attention, um, for your sake and the sake of your children, the sake of your family. I think it's incredibly important. And listen, we talk about this a lot on this show. Music has the power to heal. Music also has the power to harm. Pay attention to those frequencies. If there's something in a song that don't feel right, you can turn that song off and you can acknowledge, like, I don't know about that. There was something in that that just didn't sit where I needed it to sit, right? Pay attention to those things because we have so much of that innate with us, right? As
Mm,
someone who loves a dance and a DJ, I can tell when the DJ is having a good night or a bad night based on how they play, what they play, and like what journey they are taking me on. Is this a journey to a place where I want to go? Or is this a journey that, you know what, I'm going to cut this night out early? Right.
yeah.
So just pay attention to it and realize that a carbon nation does not happen in a vacuum. There have been other carbon nations that have existed over time. And yeah, we have to be mindful.
Mm, I think
Yeah,
you hit the nail on the head. Just basically mind the energy
mind the energy. Yep,
and pay attention to your instincts. Your instincts are never wrong.
yep, yep. Well, y'all, thank y'all so much for tuning in to this episode of Q Points. We appreciate y'all. If you can see our faces and hear our voices, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Share the show with your friends, family, and colleagues. Did you know about Dr. York? Did you know about his music? And that whole part of his career and know that story, let us know in the comments. Were you a follower of, or are you a follower
So
of Carbon Nation and Nature Boy? Let us know that in the comments as well. Visit our website at qpoints.com. There you can check out a lot of all of our archive episodes, and there's a lot there for you to take in. You can become a member. It keeps the lights on here in Q Points land. You can shop our store at store.qpoints.com, and over on Substack, you can get some additional content. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all.
absolutely. And like I always say, in this life, you have a choice. You can either pick up the needle or you can let the record play. I'm DJ Sir Daniel,
And my name is Jay Ray, y'all.
and this is Q Points Podcast, dropping the needle on Black music history. We will see you on the next go round. Peace.
Peace, y'all.